Welcome to another episode of AD and the MC. My name is Sharon Taft. Next to me, of course, is Mark Orval, Angry Dad, as he is every week. And it wouldn't be right if we didn't do the final piece of the puzzle, AD, your gorgeous wife, Sharon Orval. It's so nice to have you with
Why
us.
didn't I do the intro? Because I would have done it very differently.
Let's start again. Go.
So he already is answering
Let's
for
see
me.
how you would have done it. Please, go.
Okay.
Yeah, go.
Welcome to another episode of AD and the MC. Shura Taft here on my left. Always good to have Shura
Thanks,
here with
mate.
me. And we've also got some other Sheila we picked up out the front. Now, what's your name and where you from?
I don't know, but all I know is it reminds me of going on an aeroplane with him. He takes up two seats.
He's taking
and
out,
I'm
look at that.
one leg in and one leg out.
Yeah, the armrest.
Was that any good or not?
No, it's terrible.
Geez.
No respect. Is this what it's like at home, Sharon?
No respect, always.
But you've always got a smile on your face, so I know there's a little glint in your eye.
Treat
Like,
him mean, keep him keen.
is he just he's a big friendly giant? Like, there's a lot of bark, but not a lot of bite, is there? Or is that the case? I feel like from the boys, there was a lot of bite, and the bark's now sort of...
I would say pretty much as long as you do it his way and 15 minutes earlier than what you were meant to, everything's cool.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Lay down the ground rules, mate.
Yeah, it's all easy after that.
See?
So let's go back, or the start. The people who know, who watch and listen to this podcast now know AD pretty well. And in fact, probably more intimately than they thought they would in terms of the kids have come on. They've given us a little insight into him as a dad. From the side of as a wife, take us through where you guys met and what you thought of him when you first encountered.
This might
Well,
surprise you.
this is really strange to say in this day and age, but we actually met at a nightclub. I feel really
Beautiful.
embarrassed to admit that.
Chasers or the heat or...
Ballarat.
Ballarat,
Oh,
weirdly.
Ballarat. Wow.
Yeah, the night before I moved to Melbourne, so it was meant to be. And I can honestly say that he stood out because he was literally head and shoulders
Tall,
taller than everyone
skinny.
else. Yes, it's so handsome, amazing rig.
See?
You said you were handsome.
No, and he was actually very smooth.
He's got the gift
Hard
of
to
the gab,
believe,
let's be
yeah,
honest.
very smooth. So
Now, were you a policewoman at that stage, or what
I
was-
literally was coming to Melbourne the very next day to go into the police academy.
Wow. So you were from where originally?
I was from a little town called Rapanyup.
Where that kid got bit by the snake the other day.
Oh, that kid got bit. Like how many kids get bit?
You had that kid.
Sorry, mate. I didn't see that one. But
Yeah, it's-
and so, what drove you to the police force?
Look, do you know, I probably was the only thing that I ever really wanted to do when I was at school. It was the only job that was sort of in the back of my mind. But being from, and when I say a country town, I'm talking 450 people.
Well, I haven't heard of it to truth be
Yes,
told, so that
it's
says it.
tiny.
I'm not saying I know every town
Wow.
in
Yeah.
Victoria, but it must be small.
Yeah, and like I grew up on a farm. The school I went to closed because there was only 9 students left in it. So for me to go to Melbourne, I was so nervous and so put off by it. If I could have joined the police force and stayed somewhere in the country, I probably would have done it years earlier.
What
but
year is this?
I was 23,
88.
yeah,
Okay.
when I joined the
So it
police
really is the
force.
big smoke. You come into a place
Oh,
that's...
it was so I literally lived in Ballarat for a year beforehand.
Just to cut a teeth.
Just
with
to,
the traffic.
yeah, before I actually got, I suppose the guts up to come to Melbourne,
Which
which
only
it was
wrote one car off in
terrifying.
Ballarat. That's not a bad sort of precursor into coming
It's
to
a
Melbourne.
good start.
I did ride his off in the police academy. I backed into a tree, but that's a long story.
She didn't pay me either. The excess. For one,
Mate,
I
if
remember.
anything, you owe her. So you come to what was your? You come to the big city. What was your take? Was it overawed? Were you overawed, or were you okay immediately?
I think because once I came to the police academy, you had to live in. I felt very protected and in my own little world there. So I wasn't really overawed. I had a sister that was already living here, and she lived actually very close to the police academy in Mulgrave. So it was actually I felt quite comfortable, but it was actually still terrifying. I think once the first moment I got out, they sent us straight into the city. And, I'm on 12-point directing traffic at Flinders and Swanson Street, and I don't even know really where I am, and I'm holding my hand up and stopping cars and directing traffic.
All the people used to do was wave back.
She would have stopped traffic anyway, right? But in all seriousness, I shouldn't joke, but like as an attractive woman in the police force, was it hard in those days? Because we talk now about, there's a lot now out about the Me Too movement and about how women have had it in the workplace for so long. I would think that is one workplace where it's quite hard to be an attractive woman.
I think back then especially, so, we're talking about 88, you know,
30 years ago.
the police force has come a long way from there, and it was very male dominated. A female was, you know, you might have had 6 of you at a station. It was not a very common thing.
There's no gender balance.
No, there was no gender balance.
But even the people on the street, I'm talking about, you come over and tell someone to stop drinking or whatever they're doing, and they're like, yeah, righto.
Do you know what? The one thing I found and learnt very quickly in the police force was that there's a way to go about everything. And, you know, I don't think I ever really, I mean, I arrested a lot of people, but every time I did it, there was a way to go about it. And, you know, being dominant and bossy isn't always the best way to get the outcome. And, you know, I've walked out of a pub brawl, I remember, with another policewoman, and there was no other units to come and help us, with the main offender who'd been literally hitting people over the head with pool cues, and it was a massive brawl. And he literally put his arm around me and walked out to the van and hopped in for me, literally.
She said, I'll give you my phone number. Come easy, I'll give you my phone number.
I'll drive you home. This would be great.
There's just a way to go about it. You know, I approached it differently because I knew going in, you know, acting bossy and trying to be domineering was not going to help the situation at all. So
now, we had on the last episode of 8 in the MC, we had Gary Wilson. He's an SOG, SWAT team. I mean, and we talked to him a lot about that era, 80s, 90s of crime. And you were in it. You were on the force as well. Things like Wall Street happening and all that sort of stuff. Like, what's your memory of that period in terms of crime?
Actually, Wall Street, very interestingly, happened right when I first joined. And to be honest with you, I think until that moment, obviously the Russell Street bombing as well, but until that time, and I think in particular Wall Street, that most police in Victoria felt quite safe.
Yeah.
And that, I think, was the turning point for us, feeling like that somebody... Because there was always a bit of a thing where that criminals knew that there was like a line in the sand and you didn't cross that line. And that crossed that line. They targeted like two officers that were completely innocent. They just targeted them. So honestly, it made us terrified. I remember getting called to a car in Dandenong, because I ended up going straight to Dandenong, which was in the deep end sort of place to go. And I remember going to this car, we got a call to go to this car, and the same scenario. Someone had left it on the middle of Princess Highway, all the doors open, car running, lights on. So you can imagine.
All you can think is,
I'm
heading into a trap.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I thought, well, this could be the last thing I do.
So hang on a sec. At the other side, you're the spouse. Your career's probably over at this point, I would have thought.
Beckoning corporate
career coming.
Kicking off of that.
No, but in all seriousness, your wife is heading out on the streets every day and putting her life at risk. Did you feel that at home?
100%. And again, it was those sort of crimes that actually made you realise that, shit, it's a bloody dangerous job. You're not just directing traffic. They don't know. Most people in the workforce, they know what today's about because you plan in your schedule, have meetings, appointments, you go there, you do that. They've got no idea what's going to happen from 1 minute to the next.
But how much are you aware of that as a partner? Because you don't know where Sharon's at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, whether she's been called to an armed robbery.
No, you don't. And the thing is, in the police force, one kid or 2 kids, as it sort of evolved with us, you know, you have deadlines and timeframes. If she locks up a crook and she's on from 7 till 3, she gets a crook at 2:30. They don't go, it's 3 o'clock, I'll walk out.
You're done. Step out.
She could be there for
no
2,
mobile
3,
phone.
4 hours locking up a crook. And so then you've got no mobiles to ring and communicate, pick up kid from daycare, whatever. It was challenging. And she spent 10 years in it.
So would you have moments where Sharon's working till 4 and at 5 o'clock you're like, she's not home yet?
Well, no one communicates with you because if I was at home...
Well, you could now. You'd send a text, but back then...
you just didn't know. But at the same time, what you didn't have was an expectation.
No.
Because now you pick up a phone and someone doesn't answer, you go, where the hell are they? You could ring the police station and you might get them, but it's unlikely if they're operational because they're out. You can leave a message, but your expectation was different, that you weren't going to get a call back straight away, etc. It was only with the childcare centre or someone rang and said, oh, look, Sharon hasn't been to pick up the kids yet. You go, shit, she's obviously locked up a crook. But that's how you had to just manage it. Otherwise, you lock deadlines and timeframes in and what you were doing, what she was doing and all that as best you can, and then you just have to go with the flow.
So did you love it? Did you love it?
Absolutely loved it. Honestly, I feel like, weirdly enough, as much as there's times when, you're terrified, times when you're sad, times when, obviously there's trauma, to me, it taught me the most about life and people that I could possibly have ever been taught. And being a little country person and pretty, sheltered, the minute you step into it, you've got to straight away start to realise that there's so many different people at different levels, and you just have to learn to approach everyone at that different level and have different expectations and...
Style flex.
Yeah, it really taught me a lot about people.
Well, we want to talk eventually about your kids who've come on and they've talked about their own things as well. But just quickly on that, with the police force and the mental health side of things, do you ever... I know it wasn't so much trauma, but there would have been some. Do you ever have moments of flashbacks or, how's the mental health side for you?
I'll be really honest with you. It at the time, you feel very, you'll just go straight into work mode. All you worry about is making sure the other people are okay, that everything, and because you spend your time worrying about that, you don't everything gets deflected off you. But I can honestly tell you, when I got pregnant with Dylan and we had our first child, which when we had Dylan, I had massive issues with, because I'd had so many deaths with small children and cot death. That I'd gone to as a policewoman, and unfortunately back in those days we actually used to have to actually handle the bodies ourselves at Dandenong at the hospital. So, even though I sort of pretended at the time that everything was fine, it did give me... I literally sat with my hand in Dylan's cot for the first 6 months of his life. Every time I could hear him, I worried, and every time I couldn't hear him,
well, that's
I worried.
amazing. I've just had a son, I'm 20-month-old, and that rings so true to me. And I haven't experienced a dead child. And every waking moment was, is he awake?
100%.
So that's fascinating. But there was no support like there is now, or maybe there was some, but it would be very different, right?
They always offered after an incident. They'd always say that if you needed help, but you sort of look around you and you think, well, none of the 90% males here are looking for help, so. Their way of help would be have a beer after work.
But half of them would be struggling, maybe more than you.
100% they would have been. Well, I know some of the instances I went to, a lot of the times with kids, I would be working with older males that already had children, and they would say to me, do you mind this part? Because, it's too close to home for me. And at the time, I was all right with it because I didn't have that small child at home that they did at the time. So I understood later on what it meant.
Have you ever sought out help for that in the sense that, it's quite a lot of things to play through in your mind, and you...
Possibly I should have, because my kids will be the first ones to tell you now, I'm shocking still with... I get very anxious if I sense something might be wrong with them. And, there's nothing for me to text Mitch or Dill at 2 o'clock in the morning when I wake up and say, hey, it's me, being annoying, just text me you're okay. And they always answer me. They're brilliant. They're like, yeah, hey, Mum, I'm fine.
You haven't got home yet?
I'm still good.
But, yeah, it has made me quite anxious over the years as far as always...
There's a few things that make you anxious in your life.
Don't get me started.
Just to the police force thing in terms of how it all come to an end, and this is talking to Flip last week, but this is what's changed a hell of a lot in terms of how far they've come as an employer. Sharon actually questioned with 2 kids about sort of being able to maybe not do as many night shifts and all that, 'cause it's just hard to juggle, whatever. And her boss at the time goes, you work out whether you want to be a cop or a mum.
He just looked at me and said, do you want to be a policewoman or do you want to be a mother? And I was like...
You work it out.
So what was the catalyst for stopping?
That.
Literally the difficulty. I had Dylan and Mitch and, night shift. It was just getting really difficult to juggle. Yeah.
And you were just like, give it up, it's...
Yeah, well, she'd done her 10 years and it just, I don't know, it seemed right at that time because we weren't having a third kid at that point.
Yep.
So it wasn't as if we were actually, you know, sort of getting ready to have a third. Basically, logistically, it became an issue. It became challenging. So it was like, okay, and she just chose to, that was certainly the thing that said, you know what, I'm not going to cop that, I'm just going to resign. So, but she loved it. Hannah's thinking of being a policewoman.
Yeah,
so,
right.
You know,
she's got a good role model.
Yeah, of course, Sharon's encouraged her and said, well, and it's a great career, especially these days.
She's thinking about either that or the fire brigade, and I start to wonder sometimes if I should have joined the fire brigade because I've been putting out spot fires for the last 25
Sharon,
years.
You've got to play the hose to be a fire.
This is like a tyre fire.
Yeah, but they're hoses you can actually find, Mark.
So let's move forward a few years. You've now got 3 kids. Hannah's come along. When did you realise your family was going to become like the Simpsons, if you will, in terms of because you're like, I mean that in an endearing sense. Like a lot of people's families I perceive as boring. My family's fairly boring in terms of what everyone does. Everyone in your family has a bit of a story. Dylan gets drafted. Mitchell's doing his thing with the AD video. AD's AD. You know, you actually have these characters. When did you realise that was playing out the way it has?
It's interesting. I don't know when I realised it.
You knew early on. You used to dress up and played all these different characters when we first met. Is that what you mean?
No, that's wishful thinking as always.
Right. Yeah. Okay, anyway.
But no, look, to be honest, my family that I grew up in, my dad is a very similar personality to Mark. And they always say that you end up married.
Dad,
yeah,
yes.
So I think I sort of did that. Mum laughs at it a lot. But I think I grew up in a similar kind of family with a lot of character and all that sort of stuff going on. So I didn't ever really notice a massive difference with it. I just thought we were normal. I think we're everything but normal, but normal if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what did you make of the start of, because we had Dylan and Mitchell and they both talked about how the videos and the kind of the notoriety started.
Yep.
What was your take on it at the time when they're pranking their old man? And you know he's a bit of a shit taker anyway, but when that starts to happen, did you think it would get to where it got? To
be honest, I don't think I ever thought it was going to be anything more than what it was. Like, you know, people ask me all the time, is it real? You know, is it real? Is it made up? And how can he possibly, they can't get him to react like that. And I just look at them and I say, that's how it all started. It started because it's so easy to get him going and that's how he reacts to everything. So nothing has to be sort of set up for it to make him react. They know we push this button and bang, off he goes.
Yeah. I needed help years ago.
You still do, mate. You still do.
He's the biggest overreactor about everything, like literally everything.
But as it started to take off, were you like, holy cow, our family's now in the public eye? Because you are. I mean, you've got hundreds, millions of eyes on you.
It frightened me a little bit initially because I think from the protective mum point of view, I was really worried about, you know, how people would react to the kids and how it would affect them. And, you know, you don't even want, you know, just that whole, you know, seeing what people say. You know, I've seen some pretty horrible things that people will send in messages, you know. I'll never understand that whole troll thing. I just don't get it. But, you know, messages, I've seen them put messages on posts saying, you know, that your kids are arseholes, they should kill themselves. Like, I've literally, you know, and so all of that, I worried about it. But from the very beginning, you know, and especially Mitch, you know, would say, Mum, don't read them. What they say doesn't matter. Just don't worry about it. It's not bothering us. And Dill seemed to take it all on the chin. It never seemed to worry him. So as long as they're happy, you know, it's always just me protecting. As long as everyone's happy.
There's not a lot of privacy for your family anymore.
Or
no, is there?
There isn't. No. I've found that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's elements that are intrusive, but it's, you know, it's still, I mean, our house is still our house, you know. And we're like every family. We fight, we argue, we yell, we swear, we storm off. And we're going to separate one day, get back.
He's having his own conversation with himself, isn't he?
That's just him.
It's him and the dog.
Yeah, exactly. He fights and swears and carries on all the time. It's pretty much his personality. But look, as much as he's got a very angry, difficult to deal with side to him, and let me tell you, he has. Like, our relationship has not been smooth sailing. We went through a massive chunk where, you know, we were 2 people living under the same roof, but probably not
coexisting.
We were
coexisting.
coexisting.
I didn't like her cooking, mate. It was simple. Meet Matthew Butcher, start to cook properly.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, since then, it's I don't know. I just think
30 years.
Yeah.
30 years, ups and downs.
Credit to you. Of course, mate. You know, 5 years ups and downs.
Yeah,
like, it's hard.
Yeah.
Marriage is hard.
And at the end of the day, if you've got that core, you know, like the love is there. Obviously, like, I love him. He's actually probably something that people wouldn't know about him is that he's probably the most generous person I've ever met in my life.
Yep.
He would do anything for anybody that asked him. He never puts himself first, you know. when it comes to even food, you'd find that hard to believe.
Can we roll back the positives for a second here? I feel like we're giving him too much of it. No, there's a lot that I've said that too. There's a lot that people don't know about the big fella that if you just watched the videos, you wouldn't know him at all.
No.
Basically.
No, you would think that he was just a crazy,
just a big idiot, crazy,
angry
a bit
person,
nut, or a very good actor, which I know a lot of people think, which is not true.
No.
But okay, just moving direction slightly. We had both Dylan and Hannah sitting where you are, telling really thought-provoking and moving stories about their own experiences. Dylan, we'll start with Dylan.
Yep.
So, your son gets drafted, he's following in the footsteps of his father a little bit, and he goes through a fairly harrowing battle with being dejected and injured and all that stuff. And he's talked very openly and honestly here about that. And we know it's not unusual. There's a lot of footy players and sports people who go through that. But as a mother, that must be so hard to watch your son get his dream and have it crushed within a few years.
It was heartbreaking, I'll be honest with you. I could cry about it now still. It was, yeah. It was really hard to watch at the time because, he's of all of the kids, Dylan's probably the most sensitive. He's extremely sensitive.
Yeah.
So, he feels everything times 100 and, every emotion is a big emotion for him and it was his dream. Literally football was his dream from when he was, literally when he was a baby. All he ever wanted to do was play with a ball, a football. He didn't care about cars, any other toys. All he cared about was something to do with the ball and he was amazing hand-eye coordination from the beginning. And to get his football dream was, and it was almost from the minute he had the talent there, he had amazing talent, but from the minute he got it, things just went wrong. And look, to be honest with you, looking back now, I think it happened for a reason. And to be honest, I think it happened for a good reason. And I don't mean that I didn't want him to succeed because I would have loved him to, but I think football is such a, we've had so many now of Dylan's friends and Mitch's friends. And, as you know, we've had Paul Seedsman, Jake Carlisle live with us. I see that roller coaster that those poor boys have to ride.
Not easy for the guys who make it either.
Yep, the roller coaster ride, the emotions, the high doesn't last long and then you're back to the low. And
What's really interesting, because I got a phone call from an ex-footballer who's now running programs with, business development, but now he's trying to be a manager and do stuff with player development post-career. I mean, he was lucky to have a 10-year career, but it was never amazing. It was, he was always just holding on. And he called me and he said, I listened to Dylan on your 8, and that is exactly what I want to work with.
Yes.
That's the guy, because as Dylan said openly, he felt lost. He felt like there was no support at all.
No,
it was like, okay, thanks for your time. See you later. Good luck.
Yeah. And it's not just there wasn't, there actually isn't.
No, there isn't.
Again, I spoke about it. You can have 20 million in a bank account that says player welfare and this, that and the other. But how you apply it and how you use it in a meaningful way is very, very different. It doesn't have, they touch the surface on it, and it's a really massive issue for me, purely again because what I've seen and been through, which is about opportunity then for people to do it, the AFL and those included. But this time of the year is exciting for new people getting drafted. Do you know how many miserable, sad players there are now going, what the hell am I going to do with my life
Who
now?
get told you don't need it anymore.
100%.
And it's more emotional support that they need more than anything else. They really need to be able to learn to ride through the highs and lows and to be told that, don't rely on the highs, try and find something good in the lows and, try and even it out and balance it out and don't make only the highs the only thing that you're looking for all the time,
The flip side is you must be so proud that he's able to sit here and talk about it, and he's very open about it and honest. And I think that's so important because I think it helps other players.
Yeah.
That's comforting to hear what you just said then, because clearly what he was able to articulate, maybe visually what they could see, sunk in. They could see it, which is good because, he might then, that player that you're talking about may then take that and apply it and help kids and others that are suffering from it and are trying to deal with it, because it's a massive issue.
Of course it is.
It's a huge issue. So he's a smart kid and he's very mature. It made him mature. He grew up pretty quick, basically, didn't he?
Look, that affected him for years, and I believe it still does. It'll
always be unfulfilled for him, really.
It's a big disappointment, and if we know it's a big disappointment, imagine how it feels for him.
Yeah.
So, hopefully I think he's coming to the point where he realises there's so many other wonderful things in the world that you know, your whole life doesn't hang on some one little thing, you know. There's so many other opportunities and so many other, you know, people and things to do with your life out there that, you know, that's not the only thing.
Yeah, not the be all and end all, but
it's still that you know, that depression, that
of course,
that heavy weight is always sort of there, isn't it?
Well, you must have felt something when you watched that, Dylan, here. And then a few weeks later, we had Hannah on here. And the amazing thing is, I don't think we really knew the impact that was going to have in the wider sense. Hannah came on here, and as you know, she's a strong girl, but she went through something that a lot of kids go through.
A lot.
And
yes.
some take very drastic measures. Hannah sat here and we did the 18 MC podcast, and it's by far our most viewed and listened to.
Yeah.
And the people who are coming up to both of us, and I'm sure
Yes.
you've had the same experience, saying they've heard it and it's changed things, and it's opened a conversation. Tell us about what you thought when Hannah came on and talked about her bullying, because it's been amazing.
I was really proud of her, to be honest, because till now it's something that she's kept fairly private, or until then it was something that she kept fairly private. One thing about Hannah is, yes, she's a strong girl. She's also a very private person.
Yeah.
You know, you'll see a certain side of her, but she keeps most of her stuff quite private. And I was really proud of her that she came here and spoke about it so openly, and mostly because, and I know she is so grateful to all the messages that she received from people, because she now has, you know, that's really helped so many people, because not that you've given them specifically any tools or whatever, but it's just knowing that it can happen to anyone, anywhere, anytime, and that they're not targeted because there's something wrong with them. You know, they're targeted because other people are weak, and they like to target people, you know, to make themselves feel good.
That's right.
It's not, you know, there is not something wrong with that person that's being targeted. You know,
that was a clear message, 100%. You know, people look at it and they go, "Oh, she's a good-looking, smart, articulate girl, and this, that, and the other. There's no way she'd be bullied." Well, quite the opposite.
Well, that was the thing when she said
quite
that.
the opposite.
So when she was going through it at the time, as a mother in particular,
again, it was
anger must have said anger and sadness, and
there was times that I wanted to call maybe parents of some of the kids. There was times I felt like going up to the school, but you know. Always, you know, as a parent, there's one thing I've always done is I've tried not to solve my kids' problems for them, you know, and it's good to be there and support them, but, you know, clearly me going up to the school and going in and saying da-da-da about Hannah is going to probably create a new problem. It's not going to solve anything for her. And so I tried to give her the I'm going to say the tools, but the courage and ways, you know, and my big thing that I always said to her for her solutions, the big thing I always said to her was, it's a moment in time, Hannah, just get through it, because what all these kids at school forget is the minute school's finished, it all just disappears. They no longer have their group. That group falls apart very quickly.
Well, life happens.
And you become a grown-up. And grown-ups can't act that way.
No. And the best possible way to get back, not to hit them, to do it, is to succeed. That's it. I said that to her. And if she succeeds, which she's done, and she will continue to do, the bullies sit there and go, oh. And as you know, they reached out and tried to get help. And it's like, well, some reached out and some wanted to help with it. It's like, you've succeeded. You've done what you need to do. And now I think she has a powerful... I mean, you must have felt so proud, as I know AD did when he told her that she got up at her school and she said those words.
I couldn't believe she did it, to be honest. But I was really, really surprised that... and I know some of the teachers from the school said that they were quite blown away with what she got up and said as well. And I think for her, it must have been, she thought, it's the last day, nothing can happen to me tomorrow. So for her to stand up and sort of basically tell everyone what her really... Well, that was what they were meant to do, to talk about their experience. So instead of making up a fancy, fluffy idea of what they wanted to hear, she actually stood up and told the truth.
Well, she said it was the worst period of her life, in a short life, young life. But that is really sad, because that should be a memorable part of your life, with some ups and downs, of course, but hers was all about downs for the last 3 years especially, but for longer than that. So you're like, amazing what she did.
And since then, she hasn't looked back. Like, she literally has not thought about school again. Like, you know, everyone just needs to know that it's a moment in time, and someone can only hurt you if you allow them to. If you don't allow them to, if you just keep on walking through.
She's gonna take a lot of, like, she will empower some other young girls and boys.
I hope so.
And I think it will really strengthen her as well, knowing that she can help. I think she would have been touched by how many people.
She was blown away. She loved it.
Well, how I sum it up is, she was a little bit reluctant not coming on here,
No,
but
you could tell.
raising that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But after it, she actually said to me, she messaged me and she said, Dad, I can't believe how many people have reached out. I'm so glad I did that.
Yeah.
They were her exact words.
Well, you should be so proud of all your kids. Mitchell as well. He came on and yawned his way through this podcast. He was great. I'm joking.
Yeah, he sits there and picks all the
I'm
hairs
joking.
out.
He was great. Interesting how he started all the, what he's done, because he's been the sort of driving force behind those videos. So you've got 3 great kids, and it sounds like life has its ups and downs, of course, as every
it does,
life.
yes.
But I feel like your family has a lot of fun.
Oh, look, honestly, when we're not fighting, we're laughing. And in saying that, the laughing far outweighs the other side of it. And I can honestly say that we laugh about it now. Like even Chloe, Crystal, we all laugh about the fact that we want to hang out together as a family more than we want to do anything else,
We had Will Sparks and his girlfriend just come over for dinner the other night. Well, a couple of nights ago.
Yeah, Sunday night.
And a few nights ago. Like it was just the fact that the kids' mates want to come over.
That's what you want as a parent, to be that
like
parent.
it's good. We sat there and watched a movie together and
laughed.
I bagged Sharon and we laughed and it was like it's just.
How much
good fun.
KFC did you eat that night?
And I shows his platters, mate.
Okay.
Like when Sharon makes one of her unbelievable platters, I don't need to eat for a week after that.
Well, I reckon you're an inspiration, and every time I see your Instagram, the stuff you do at the gym.
54. How's that like?
Forget the age. It doesn't matter what age she is. The toning you do of your butt and all that. Like you are in such good shape. Credit to you. No, I mean it. Credit to you. You stay in such good shape. And I know you've got a very loyal following who follow.
I love the people that follow. Do you know what? It blows me away. I shouldn't say this because I'll probably now get it, but I have never, ever, ever received a hate message to myself.
How could anyone?
I sent her a couple of texts.
Other than Mark, But I actually love the people that follow me. They are so, it's just a very, it's almost like they encourage me all the time. Every time I think, what am I doing? There's so many people out there that they can listen to. They don't need me.
She's an inspiration, mate. And I should say that because people will know she went off Instagram for a while ago and she was pretty sick or really sick, and she still had some struggles with that since then and still trying to deal with that. And she still gets out of bed every day and does that because that's what she loves. And the easiest thing for her to do would be to make excuses and not do it, but she still does it.
No, I think you're an inspiration.
She's amazing.
Thanks.
I've always said you're my favourite Orval, if I'm honest, and I'll stick with that. I'd love to be a pseudo part of the family if I can sort of.
You can join us.
Thanks for being part of it.
I
feel like it rounds it out nicely though. He had Sharon on and she was pretty nice to you.
She loves me, man.
I do love him.
She loves me.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it, and obviously, well done on raising 3 really well balanced kids.
The only thing that can't balance in our family is money.
I was gonna say,
But it's getting better.
I feel sorry for the scales in
He's
your
good at
household.
balancing a burger in one hand and fries in the other.
That's what you do, man. You learn over a period of time to do that.
Either way, we love having you on, and
Thank you, Sharon.
good luck with all the health and all the stuff that you're doing. And check her out, Sharon Orval, on Instagram, because you're an inspiration to me. Anyway, I'm nowhere near as fit as you. That's it, AD and the MC for another episode. We'll be back next week because that's what we do.
That's what we do.
I'll see you then.